All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're decoding how one of the absolute calmest minds in sports manages some of the biggest, loudest egos on the planet. We're talking about Carlo Ancelotti. Now, you probably already know the guy has won football's ultimate prize, the Champions League, a record 5 times. But honestly, what's truly fascinating here isn't that he wins, it's how he pulls it off. He operates in this multi-billion-dollar machine known for massive egos, intense media scrutiny, and sky-high stakes, and yet he does it all without ever raising his voice. It's wild.
He's actually pretty explicit about this approach. He flat out says, "I'm not a dictator." And he really means it. He operates on this core belief that you get the absolute best out of people when you yourself are calm. It's a total rejection of that iron-fisted, screaming manager style we see so often in high-stakes environments. For Ancelotti, true authority, it just doesn't need constant volume.
Which of course brings us to the ultimate paradox here. Think about modern football for a second, or honestly any modern, high-pressure corporate environment. It's chaotic, it's incredibly loud, the pressure for immediate results is literally suffocating. So how on earth does a leader survive, let alone thrive? By whispering instead of shouting. How do you command a locker room full of superstars who are basically their own global corporations without demanding absolute rigid obedience?
Well, let's compare the two. The traditional iron fist manager relies on theatrical aggression, right? Fear-based motivation, absolute control, psychological ploys, ruling by decree. But Ancelotti's quiet leader approach, it's entirely relationship first. It relies on his disposition, this almost magical aura of calmness. He basically stands completely still in the middle of a hype tornado and focuses purely on personal bonds, deep trust, and creating what he considers a family environment.
Moving into Section 1, the Diva Whisperer, let's talk about mastering those superstar egos. How does this actually play out when you're managing the most famous, highly paid people on the planet? We're talking guys like Cristiano Ronaldo, David Beckham, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Gareth Bale. To do that, you basically have to become what the media famously dubbed the Diva Whisperer. In his own book, Quiet Leadership, Ancelotti spells out his central thesis. He argues that true authority comes from respect and trust, not fear. His power is entirely implicit. He doesn't need to rant and rave just to prove to everyone he's the guy in charge. The players know he's the boss, but that authority is earned because he respects them first. He treats them like adults and ultimate professionals.
And the results of that mutual respect are pretty profound. Take Paolo Maldini, one of the all-time great defenders who played under Carlo at AC Milan. Maldini once said that with Carlo, he not only enjoyed playing football, but he also enjoyed living. Ancelotti actually calls this the best compliment he's ever received. It just proves that his main goal is cultivating this supportive atmosphere where people don't just work hard, they actually enjoy their lives doing it. It's all about preserving their intrinsic passion for the game.
Practically speaking, this builds up on a day-to-day, highly individualized basis. He tailors his whole approach to whoever is standing in front of him. For example, he learned a massive lesson about load management from Cristiano Ronaldo. He realized, you don't overwork your absolute best players in meaningless situations if you want them fresh for the crucial final stretch of the season. It's a true partnership. And with Toni Kroos, Ancelotti showed incredible emotional intelligence. There was this one incident where Ancelotti subbed Kroos out of a tense game, and Kroos was absolutely furious. But Ancelotti didn't try to assert dominance or shout him down. Instead, he simply didn't speak to him the next day. He gave Kroos the space to completely cool down for a full 24 hours before having a rational conversation, totally avoiding a pointless blow-up.
All right, let's look at Section 2, Trust on the Pitch, and the Real Madrid 4-3-3 dilemma. Because look, this soft touch isn't just about warm and fuzzy feelings. It has massive, high-stakes tactical implications on the pitch. When you build a culture of deep trust, it directly impacts your strategic product.
See, his entire tactical philosophy relies heavily on player intelligence. Unlike those managers who micromanage and script every single movement down to the inch, Ancelotti prefers to hand his players the tools and then trust them to figure things out organically during the match. He relies on specific moments and lets players freely find the right combinations based on the flow of the game. It's incredibly empowering, but, as we're about to see, it comes with a pretty huge strategic risk.
Just look at Real Madrid's current 4-3-3 tactical setup. It's kind of a top-heavy nightmare right now. With the arrival of Kylian Mbappe, you've got him, Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Jude Bellingham, and Fede Valverde. These are all highly attack-minded players who naturally just want to surge forward. But a balanced team desperately needs a rest defense, about 5 players staying back to prevent counterattacks. Because Madrid's fullbacks also love to push high up the pitch, they often end up with 7 players attacking and only 3 sitting deep.
It's completely disconnected. You've got Bellingham and Vinicius making the exact same runs, Valverde drifting way too wide, and the midfield just constantly losing control of the center.
Which begs a massive question. What happens to a high-trust, low-intervention manager when the players are utterly disconnected? If Ancelotti's core style is to step back and let them find the combinations, what happens when they just can't? The source material points out they were actually punished heavily by Barcelona recently because of this exact incoherence. This right here, this is the absolute danger zone of quiet leadership.
This brings us to Section 3, the macro view and the leadership arc. Because to understand how Ancelotti navigates a tactical and cultural crisis like this, we've got to zoom out. We need to look at his overarching theory of management life cycles.
Ancelotti believes every single leadership stint follows this exact, inevitable timeline. First, you have the courtship, where you're recruited and hired. Then comes the honeymoon, where everyone's optimistic, everyone's giving you grace. Third is success and stability, if you're lucky enough to actually achieve it. But eventually that plateaus and you hit phase 4. The cracks. This is the critical danger zone where Ancelotti found himself during this tactical dilemma at Madrid. And finally, phase 5, the inevitable breakup. And Ancelotti argues, this arc isn't just a reality in sports, it literally applies to virtually every business leadership role on the planet.
Now, get a load of this number, 2.36. That is the average tenure, in years, of an English Premier League manager. For comparison, the average tenure of a typical corporate CEO is over 5 years. It just goes to show how hyper-compressed this leadership arc really is in high-stakes environments. You are literally moving from courtship to breakup in less than 30 months. Wild, right?
Okay, on to Section 4, from the pitch to the boardroom. Because the crucial takeaway here is how this translates directly to you and your own workplace. Ancelotti's strategies aren't just for managing superstar athletes making millions of dollars. They are highly, highly effective for managing modern talent in literally any industry.
To put this into perspective, elite footballers are essentially just highly paid millennials. According to a Deloitte survey highlighted in our sources, millennials and Gen Z absolutely demand open, collaborative, and flexible working environments. They're far less traditionally loyal because they recognize they are highly valuable assets and they treat their employers accordingly. That rigid dictator style, it simply doesn't work on them anymore. They require a flexible, relationship-first approach to actually stay genuinely engaged and productive. Legendary coach Pat Summitt once famously said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And honestly, this principle is the absolute bedrock of Ancelotti's success. In today's workforce, getting people to work hard isn't about constantly proving you're the smartest person in the room. It's a managerial imperative to show them you genuinely care about them as human beings, and that you want them to achieve success for their own sake. It is the absolute purest form of servant leadership.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought to apply to your own career. Take a good look at your team, your boss, and your organization. Where are you on your own leadership arc? Are you still in that honeymoon phase, or are the cracks starting to show? I really hope this explainer helps you navigate whatever phase you're currently in. And who knows, maybe it'll even inspire you to lean into a little bit of quiet leadership yourself. See you next time.